Number 3, Deputy Desi Ellis, the delay in allocating housing funding to local authorities. Minister, are you taking that? Deputy Desi Ellis.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank the Minister for taking this topical issue. Minister, last week it was reported that 50 million required by Dublin City Council to deal with the homeless crisis had not been paid or allocated to the Council by the Department of the Environment. I spoke to Council officials this week and there has been no progress on this. The 15 million in question is 42 million for homeless services and 8 million to refurbish council homes which are vacant at present. This is against the backdrop of unprecedented numbers of people becoming homeless, huge demand for emergency accommodation and social housing, and a shortage of private rental properties. We have 40 new families becoming homeless a month, mostly due to soaring rent levels, which are completely unregulated. We have 1,000 children in emergency accommodation, 150 or so people sleeping rough on the streets of Dublin, and over 20,000 unable to currently find affordable and suitable housing. In regard to housing, the only place there is not a shortage is in the press office of the Department of Environment. Every week, it seems, there is an announcement of money already announced with more details and somehow less actual information. This strategy is to confuse the public and give the media pre-written column inches without any substance in the hope they won't look deeper. It doesn't take too deep a look, though, as the government's plan is very shallow indeed. Despite false claims of billions being spent on housing, what we have is a 6-year plan for a government with only about 6 months left to live. What is behind the headline? The reality that this government plans to build just 167 homes in the next 2.5 years in this city. This is creative accounting masking callous inactivity. The real figures show less than a third of planned funding for this, and the following 2 years will actually go to the real social housing. The rest is a transfer of funding from rent supplement to the slightly different HAPS scheme. The facts are this government is doing less and less to provide housing. We need commitments and actions on real change. We need a commitment to increase emergency bed capacity, to maintain 50% housing allocation for homelessness in Dublin, to create a one-stop show in local authorities for homeless and at-risk tenants, to introduce a fair rent system of regulation to end the flow of tenants into homelessness, to invest in building thousands more social housings every year. That's what we need. To admit that we face a national emergency due to our housing shortage and serious, strong and even drastic measures are needed to ensure that the public good is served and the right to housing protected. That is what we need. We are in an emergency situation. And even this morning, I've seen more homeless people in my offices once again being forced out of the rental market because we haven't introduced rent controls, we haven't dealt with the soaring prices in Dublin. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Deputy. Montara.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and I thank the Deputy for raising this very important issue, because it actually allows us to outline just exactly what this government is doing across its social housing strategy. And I would also like to put on public record the 64 million that has been allocated across Carlow Kilkenny for the housing strategy. And in all my years of actually living in Carlow Kilkenny, I haven't heard of such allocations being made by previous administrations. On the 1st of April last, Minister Kelly announced provisional funding allocations totalling 1.5 billion for all local authorities to meet the delivery targets under the social housing strategy out to 2017. This funding will be invested in a combination of building, buying and leasing schemes by local authorities, and will see a 25% reduction nationally on the housing waiting lists. The targets are ambitious and they had to be backed up with real resources. Hence the importance of the provisional funding allocations we also announced. 1.5 billion is a hugely significant commitment by this government to support delivery by local authority and others. We then followed up the setting of the 3-year targets with approvals on the 5th of May of the largest social housing construction endeavour for many years. It's a £312 million investment covering all 31 local authorities. It involves over 1,700 housing units being built across 100 separate projects. This was the first such announcement under the social housing strategy, and it will be followed by further announcements. So headline allocations in respect of social housing targets for all local authorities out to 2017 have been made. Allocations to local authorities in respect of a number of specific areas of housing activity have been made and are being finalised. Minister Kelly has made an additional £10.5 million available nationally for homeless accommodation and related services in 2015. This is an increase in funding of over 20%, bringing the Exchequer contribution this year to £55.5 million. The 2015 regional allocations are currently being finalised with a view to their confirmation shortly. We have secured increases in important areas such as disability grants and supports for older people. This relates to both local authorities' own tenants and the support the authorities provide to private house owners to make adaptations, which will enable older people or people with a disability to remain in their own home. Further allocations in respect of energy efficiency upgrades for local authority housing will be made shortly, bringing benefits to the householders through reduced fuel bills. In relation to tackling vacant social housing units, I have to emphasise that this is a challenge that I want to see local authorities continue to tackle. The Department is continuing to provide Exchequer support for this work and will be announcing a new round of targets and funding very soon. The social housing strategy makes it clear that this funding will, in future, be linked to local authorities putting in place ongoing maintenance programmes to address the issue of vacant properties. Local authorities need to make social houses available to new tenants as quickly as possible. And with the rental income they have available, the majority of units that have become vacant should be re-tenanted very quickly. I am confident that all these measures, for which the Government is providing increased resources, are tackling social housing with an increased focus and vigour. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Ellis.
Thanks, Minister. But it's clear, Minister, that you still haven't got it, that we still have a major crisis. And the Government did announce a package of £3.8 billion. And they announced that it was over 3 years. The first 3 years would be £2.5 billion, and the second three would be £1.3 billion. But the reality is this Government has less than maybe 6 months or more to last. And we are not building social housing. That's the problem. We are entering into a lot of schemes in terms of leasing and renting and now HAP. This is what's happening. Instead of the local authorities building housing, social housing, that's what we need. We need more social housing. And I think the Government woke up a little after the death of Jonathan Corrie. And I went to emergency meeting after emergency meeting, and there was 268 or so places brought on stream for single homeless people. But the reality now is we have homeless families, 40 a month appearing. It's in a crisis situation. The actual situation has got worse even since the death of Jonathan Corrie. And this Government has fingered money, which is long-term money, that's going to take a number of years to deliver. We need actions now. We need emergency actions now to tackle what is an absolute horrific situation where we have 1,000 children a month or every night sleeping in homeless accommodation. That is absolutely scandalous. Some of them are brought to the other side of the city. They're not even kept in their own areas because they have to go to a hotel or they have to go to a B&B that's on the other side of the city, and they have to get across for their schools, etc. And the cost of this and the pressure that it's putting on families is just enormous. And I mean, there are other areas that I've asked time out of number. The financial contributions, the Minister has still not come back and given an indicator, and should be putting pressure on the local authorities to go back and introduce financial contributions. And the local authorities are starting to buy houses because they're not able to get them at the moment. That's happening now in Dublin City Council. They're starting to buy properties, whether they're new or they're older houses. That's what's happening. Well, But the immediate problem is we need to address this urgently now. Right.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Final reply.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. And I would like to say to the Deputy that we very much do get it. And I think that allocations of 1.5 billion is not an insignificant sum. And I'm not quite sure what the Deputy is saying. Is it that the councils shouldn't be buying properties to put people in? I'm sorry, I misconstrued that. I thought that's what you were saying. The local authorities would not be left short where they present clear, realistic and deliverable social housing proposals in line with social housing strategy. And a further demonstration of the government's commitment to the strategy is the sanction for the hiring of additional local authority staff to support the delivery of social housing. So where a local authority is saying that they're not able to deliver because they are short of staff, Minister Kelly has agreed to give them staff so that that is not a blockage in the system either. The recent announcement of new social housing build projects will address housing need and will provide around 3,000 jobs in the construction sector. So it's not only supporting people on the housing list, it's also supporting jobs in a real economy. I think at this stage it's fair to say that there are signs that the economic recovery is taking hold. On the back of that economic growth and with the implementation of the actions set out in the social housing strategy, we are optimistic that we will deliver on the targets, and this will have a significant impact on the housing waiting list throughout the country. And I suppose to add, Ceann Comhairle, I too have people who come into my office as well who are in, particular situations, and we are dependent on the local authority. But that is why the Minister said it's build, buy, lease. So we're not waiting for the units to be built. The local authorities can lease and they can buy as well.
Thank you, Minister.
Ceann Comhairle.